The cafe was packed when Sarah walked in, her left hand prominently displayed so everyone could see the ring. My grandmother's ring. She slid into the seat across from me, a smirk playing on her perfectly painted lips. "Thanks for meeting me, Emma," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "I wanted you to be the first to know. Michael and I are getting married." My stomach churned at the mention of my ex-husband's name, but I kept my expression neutral. Sarah had always been like this, taking everything that was mine, from childhood toys to prom dates. But this time she'd gone too far. "Congratulations," I said, wrapping my hands around my coffee cup to stop them from shaking. "I see you're wearing Grandmother Rose's ring." She held up her hand, letting the antique diamond catch the light. "Oh, this old thing. Well, since Michael helped me contest the will, technically it's mine now, along with the house and the trust fund." Her smile widened. "It's funny how things work out, isn't it?" I thought about the last conversation I'd had with Grandmother Rose, just days before she passed. We'd been in her study, surrounded by her beloved books and antiques, when she'd handed me an old leather journal. "Keep this safe," she'd whispered, her voice weak but urgent. "Everything you need to know is in here. Promise me to wait until the right moment." I promised, tucking the journal away without reading it. Now, watching Sarah flaunt her stolen inheritance, I wondered if this was the moment Grandmother had been waiting for. "You know what's really funny?" Sarah continued, stirring her latte with obvious pleasure. "How easy it was to convince the lawyers that you were mentally unstable. A few tearful statements from Michael about your episodes during your marriage, some carefully edited photos." She shrugged. "The judge practically handed everything over." My hands tightened around my cup. The episodes Sarah mentioned were panic attacks I had after discovering Michael's affairs, including, I now realized, with my own sister. They'd used my lowest moments against me, twisted my pain into a weapon. "Why did you ask me here, Sarah?" I kept my voice steady, remembering the weight of Grandmother's journal in my bag. "Just to gloat." "Oh no, dear sister." She leaned forward, dropping her voice. "I wanted to offer you a deal. Sign away any future claims to the estate, and I'll give you a small monthly allowance, just enough to keep you from ending up on the streets." She sat back, clearly pleased with herself. After all, we are family. I thought about the journal, about Grandmother's final words, about the secret I discovered last night when I finally opened those weathered pages. "You're right," I said, reaching for my bag. "We are family. And there's something you should know about Grandmother's real estate." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" "We've been through all the paperwork. Everything's in my name now." I pulled out the journal, its leather cover worn with age. "Not everything. Did you know Grandmother kept a second set of books?" For the first time, Sarah's confident smile faltered. "What?" "She was quite meticulous," I continued, opening the journal. "Every transaction, every property, every investment, all documented here, including some interesting transfers made just before she died." "You're lying," Sarah snapped, but I could see the uncertainty in her eyes. "The lawyers found everything." "Did they?" I slid a stack of papers across the table, copies I'd made from the journal's most important pages. Because according to this, Grandmother's most valuable assets were moved into a separate trust 2 weeks before she passed. A trust that requires both sisters to agree on any distribution of funds. Sarah's face paled as she scanned the documents. I could almost see her mind racing, calculating what this meant. "That's impossible," she whispered, but her hands were shaking now. "Michael checked everything," he said. "Michael doesn't know about this," I cut in. "Neither do the lawyers. Grandmother made sure of that. She knew how you both operated. She was just waiting to see how far you'd go." "You're bluffing," Sarah said, but her voice had lost its edge. "These could be forged." I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I'd memorized. "Why don't we ask Mr. Chen? He's the trustee Grandmother appointed. I'm sure he'd be happy to verify everything." Sarah's composure cracked completely. "Wait," he said quickly, reaching for my phone. Let's discuss this." I ended the call before it connected, enjoying the flash of realization in her eyes. "Oh, now you want to talk? What happened to all that confidence from earlier?" "Emma, please," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You don't understand. Michael and we've already spent some of the money. We've made commitments." "I understand perfectly," I replied, gathering my things. "You and my ex-husband conspired to steal my inheritance by painting me as mentally unstable. You used my trust against me just like you always have. What do you want? Sarah asked, the question coming out more like a plea than a demand. I stood up, looking down at my sister, really looking at her for the first time in years. Behind the perfect makeup and designer clothes, I saw something I'd never noticed before. Fear. What I want, I said quietly, is for you to think about what's going to happen when Michael finds out there's no money left to steal. When he realizes that marrying you won't give him access to grandmother's fortune after all. The color drained from Sarah's face. You wouldn't. Wouldn't I? I smiled, remembering all the times she'd taken what was mine, all the times she'd hurt me without consequence. I think it's time for both of you to learn what it feels like to lose everything. I turned to leave, but Sarah's voice stopped me. He'll leave me, she said, her words barely audible. If he finds out about this, he'll leave me. Probably, I agreed, not turning around. Just like he left me when he thought something better came along. Funny how history repeats itself, isn't it? As I walked out of the cafe, I could feel Sarah's eyes on me, could almost hear her mind racing to find a way out of the trap she'd set for herself. But this time, there was no escape. This time, justice would finally be served. The next morning, I woke up to 37 missed calls and dozens of text messages from both Sarah and Michael. I ignored them all, instead focusing on the next phase of my plan. Grandmother's journal had revealed more than just the secret trust. It had shown me exactly how to dismantle the lies they'd built. I drove to the law offices of Chen and Associates, the leather journal secure in my bag. Mr. Chen, a small man with kind eyes and steel gray hair, was waiting for me. Miss Emma, he said, rising from behind his desk. Your grandmother spoke of you often. She would be proud to see you now. I placed the journal on his desk. Did she tell you what they might try to do? He nodded gravely. Rose was very perceptive. She knew your sister's nature, and she had concerns about your ex-husband's intentions even before your divorce. That's why she created the second trust? Precisely. He opened a drawer and pulled out a thick folder. Everything of real value, the investment portfolios, the commercial properties, the art collection, it's all here, protected. What your sister and Michael managed to steal through the courts was essentially a shell. I thought about Sarah's smug face at the cafe, about Michael's confident testimony painting me as unstable. They don't know they've been playing with an empty hand this whole time. No, Mr. Chen confirmed, a slight smile touching his lips. And now that they've shown their true colors, we can proceed with the rest of Rose's plan. My phone buzzed again. Michael this time. I silenced it without looking at the message. How long before they figure it out? The quarterly statements go out next week. Once they try to access the accounts. Mr. Chen spread his hands. Well, let's just say it will be an enlightening experience. I spent the next few days in careful preparation. While Sarah and Michael grew increasingly desperate in their attempts to contact me, I met with bankers, real estate agents, and investment advisors. Each meeting revealed another layer of grandmother's brilliance. She hadn't just protected her assets, she created a framework for exposing every lie, every manipulation Sarah and Michael had used against me. The evidence was all there, meticulously documented. On Friday afternoon, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Emma, it was Michael's mother, Margaret. Please, we need to talk. Sarah's hysterical, and Michael won't tell me what's going on. I closed my eyes, remembering how Margaret had testified against me during the estate hearing, claiming she'd always known there was something wrong with that girl. I'm sorry, Margaret, I said, not feeling sorry at all. But I think it's best if they explain the situation to you themselves. I'm sure they can tell you all about how they conspired to steal my inheritance. But the money, she started. What about it? They already spent quite a bit, she said, her voice tight with worry. The new house, the cars, the engagement party next week. Emma, surely we can work something out. I thought about the engagement party they planned at the country club, the same club where Michael and I had gotten married 6 years ago. The irony wasn't lost on me. You know what's interesting, Margaret? When Michael and I were married, you told me family was everything. That loyalty and honesty were the foundations of a lasting relationship. I paused, letting the words sink in. I wonder what you'll say when you find out how your son and my sister betrayed those values. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. What do you mean? She finally asked. Ask them about the photos they doctored. Ask about the false testimony, the manufactured evidence they used to paint me as unstable. Better yet, ask them about the affair they were having while Michael and I were still married. I heard her sharp intake of breath. No, she whispered. They wouldn't. They did, I said simply. And now they're about to learn that actions have consequences. After hanging up, I drove to grandmother's house. My house now, though Sarah didn't know that yet. The Grand Victorian stood silent and dignified, its windows reflecting the late afternoon sun. I used my key to enter, breathing in the familiar scent of old books and furniture polish. In the study, everything was exactly as grandmother had left it. Her reading glasses still sat on the desk, next to a half-finished crossword puzzle. I ran my fingers along the spines of her beloved books, remembering all the hours we'd spent here together. I miss you, I whispered to the empty room. I wish you could see this. My phone buzzed again. A text from Mr. Chen. Quarterly statements sent. Expect contact within 24 hours. I smiled, settling into grandmother's favorite armchair. The wait wouldn't be long now. Just then, I heard a car screech to a halt outside. Footsteps pounded up the front steps, followed by the sound of someone pounding on the door. Emma, Sarah's voice, shrill with panic. Open this door right now. We need to talk. I stayed where I was, listening as Michael's voice joined hers. The accounts are empty, he was saying. Everything's gone. How could this happen? Nothing's gone. I called through the door, loud enough for them to hear. It was never there to begin with. The pounding stopped. A moment of silence, then Sarah's voice again, quieter now. What are you talking about? Maybe you should ask your fiancé about due diligence, I replied. About checking the real value of what you thought you were stealing before spending money you didn't have. Another silence, followed by the sound of hurried whispers. I could imagine them out there, their perfect world crumbling around them. Emma, please, Michael's voice now, using that gentle tone he'd always used when trying to manipulate me. Let's discuss this like adults. I'm sure we can work something out. I stood up, walking to the front door, but not opening it. Like we discussed things when you were sleeping with my sister. Or like we discussed things when you lied in court about my mental health. That was a mistake, he stammered. We never meant. To get caught? I finished for him. To face consequences? Well, too bad, because that's exactly what's about to happen. The fallout was swift and devastating. Within hours of their discovery that the accounts were empty, Sarah and Michael's carefully constructed world began to unravel. I sat in grandmother's study, watching through the window as they argued on the front lawn. Sarah was gesturing wildly, her perfect makeup streaked with tears, while Michael paced back and forth, running his hands through his hair in frustration. My phone lit up with a message from Mr. Chen. The bank is requesting an immediate meeting regarding the recent expenditures. Shall I arrange it? Yes, I replied, and made sure all relevant parties are present. The next morning, I walked into the downtown branch of First National Bank, dressed in one of grandmother's vintage Channel suits. Sarah and Michael were already there, along with their lawyer and Margaret. They all looked up when I entered, their faces a mix of anger, fear, and desperation. Now that everyone's here, the bank manager began. We need to discuss the irregular activities on these accounts. Sarah's lawyer leaned forward. My clients were granted access to these accounts through a court order. Everything was legal. The court order, I interrupted, placing grandmother's journal on the table, was obtained through fraudulent evidence that we can now prove was manipulated. The next hour was excruciating for them. Mr. Chen methodically laid out every detail, the doctored photos, the false testimonies, the carefully orchestrated character assassination they'd used to gain control of what they thought was grandmother's fortune. The real estate alone, Mr. Chen concluded, the properties they've leveraged for loans. None of it was actually in the accounts they accessed. Those assets are held in a separate trust, one that requires both sisters' consent for any transactions. Michael's face had turned an interesting shade of gray, but the money we spent was essentially credit extended by the bank based on assets you didn't actually control. The bank manager finished, which means those loans are now in default. Sarah's perfectly manicured nails dug into the conference table. This is ridiculous. Emma's just trying to hurt us because she's jealous. Michael chose me and she can't handle it. I looked at my sister, really looked at her. Behind the designer clothes and expensive jewelry, I saw what grandmother must have seen. A desperate woman so focused on taking what others have that she never built anything of her own. No, Sarah, I said quietly. This isn't about jealousy, it's about justice. About consequences. Grandmother knew what you were capable of, both of you. She planned for this. What do you mean? Margaret asked, speaking for the first time. I opened the journal to a marked page. This is grandmother's real will, her real intentions. Everything of value was placed in a trust before she died, with specific conditions. I looked directly at Sarah. She knew you'd try to take it all. She wanted to see what you'd do, how far you'd go. And now what? Michael demanded. You're going to take everything. Leave us with nothing. No, I replied. I'm going to do what grandmother would have wanted. The trust will remain intact, but with new conditions. I pulled out a document Mr. Chen had prepared. If you both sign this confession admitting to your fraud and manipulation, the trust will help pay off the debts you've incurred. Sarah's lawyer started to object, but she cut him off. And if we don't sign, then the bank proceeds with fraud charges and all the evidence of your deception goes public. Your choice. The silence in the room was deafening. Margaret was the first to speak. Sign it, she said to Michael, her voice tight with disappointment. Sign it and be grateful your grandmother's granddaughter has more mercy than either of you deserve. One by one they signed. Sarah's hand shook so badly she could barely write her name. Michael wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. When it was done, Mr. Chen collected the documents and nodded to me. There's one more thing, I said, standing. The engagement ring. Sarah's hand instinctively covered the diamond. But it belonged to grandmother. It was never yours to take. Slowly, reluctantly, she slipped it off and placed it on the table. I picked it up, feeling its familiar weight. Grandmother told me once that this ring wasn't just about value, I said, turning it in my hand. It was about legacy, about the kind of person you choose to be. She wore it for 50 years, building a life based on integrity and wisdom. You both could have learned from her example. Instead, you chose greed. I left them there. In that conference room, their worlds forever changed. The ride home was quiet, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the city. When I reached grandmother's house, my house now, I went straight to her study. Sitting in her favorite chair, I slipped the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly, just as she'd said it would. On her desk, next to the unfinished crossword puzzle, I found an envelope I hadn't noticed before. Inside was a short note in her familiar handwriting. My dearest Emma, if you're reading this, then everything has played out as I expected. Remember that true wealth isn't in what you own, but in who you choose to be. You've proven yourself worthy of not just my inheritance, but of my legacy. The ring is yours now. Wear it with pride, knowing that you faced adversity with grace and emerged stronger. And perhaps someday, when the time is right, you'll pass these lessons on to someone who needs them as much as you once did. With all my love, Grandmother Rose. I sat there until the sun set, thinking about choices and consequences, about the price of greed and the value of integrity. Sarah and Michael would recover eventually. The trust would ensure they didn't end up destitute. But they would never again have the power to hurt me. Months later, I heard they'd moved to another state. Their engagement quietly ended. Margaret sent me a Christmas card, thanking me for handling things with more grace than they deserved. Sarah never reached out again, and that was fine. Some bridges, once burned, are better left as ashes. The house became my sanctuary, filled with grandmother's books and memories. I started a foundation in her name, providing education grants to young women pursuing their dreams against the odds. Every time I sign a check for a new scholarship, I think about her wisdom, her foresight, her understanding of human nature. And the ring? I wear it every day, a reminder that sometimes the greatest victory isn't in taking what others have, but in becoming someone they can never diminish. Grandmother knew that all along. She just waited patiently for me to learn it too.
The crystal chandelier cast dancing shadows across Mom's Versace dress as she reached for the stack of papers, her diamond tennis bracelet catching the light. We were gathered in the formal dining room for Dad's 65th birthday. The perfect time, they thought, to fix my life choices. These transfer documents are for your own good, sweetheart, Mom said, her perfectly manicured fingers sliding the papers across our great-grandfather's mahogany table. It's time to stop playing with those silly medical devices and join the real family business. I glanced at my father, who sat at the head of the table, swirling his 30-year-old Macallan. His silver hair and bespoke suit projected the image of success he'd cultivated over 4 decades in pharmaceutical sales. "Dad. Listen to your mother, Alexandra," he sighed, not meeting my eyes. "Henderson Pharmaceuticals needs you. Your sister Caroline is already vice president of sales. You could be heading up distribution within a year." Caroline, perfectly coiffed in her Chanel suit, gave me that sympathetic look I'd grown to hate. "It's not that your research isn't interesting, Allie. But let's be realistic. How long can you keep tinkering in that little lab of yours?" My little lab. A converted warehouse space where I'd spent the last 5 years developing revolutionary medical diagnostic devices. They dismissed my biomedical engineering degree from MIT as a phase, my research grants as hobby money, and my patents pending as pipe dreams. The family company's distribution division cleared $89 million last quarter, Caroline continued, checking her rose gold Rolex. "Meanwhile, you're burning through your trust fund on, what was it again? Microrobots. Nanoscale diagnostic devices," I corrected quietly, touching the simple silver watch on my wrist. A watch that contained more computing power than their entire corporate headquarters. "And I haven't touched my trust fund in 3 years." Mom waved her hand dismissively, her rings catching the light. "Regardless, it's time to grow up. These papers will transfer your pending patents to Henderson Pharmaceuticals. We'll have our legal team look them over, maybe find some useful applications. In return, you'll get a proper executive position." My phone buzzed silently in my pocket. Years of family dinners had taught me to keep it on vibrate, but this was the notification I'd been waiting for. Carefully, I slipped it out beneath the table. "Breakthrough patent approved. Diagnostic nanotech platform validated. Bidding starts at $5.8 billion. I took a slow sip of water, watching Mom arrange the transfer papers with the same precision she used to arrange her charity gala seating charts. My sister was already typing on her phone, probably messaging the board about her upcoming triumph in bringing me into the fold. "The sooner you sign, the sooner we can announce your new position," Mom continued. "I've already spoken to the country club about hosting a welcome reception. The Ashworth's son William will be there. He's single now, you know." I touched my watch, activating a secure channel to my legal team. The message was simple: execute Protocol Omega. "Before I sign anything," I said carefully, "perhaps we should discuss exactly what these patents entail." Dad's attention finally shifted from his scotch. "Your mother's right, Alexandra. It's time to be practical. Whatever these devices are, they'll benefit from Henderson Pharmaceuticals' resources." My phone buzzed again. "Who confirmation received. FDA Fast Track approved. Global health organizations standing by." "Actually," I said, straightening in my chair, "I think we should talk about how Henderson Pharmaceuticals might benefit from my resources." Caroline laughed, the sound echoing off the antique china displayed in the cabinet behind her. "Your resources? This cute Allie. What are you going to do, sell your little robots at a science fair?" The final notification lit up my phone. Major pharma companies initiating bidding war. Current offer, $6.2 billion and climbing. I stood slowly, smoothing my simple black dress. Not designer, but perfectly tailored. "No, Caroline. I'm going to revolutionize medical diagnostics. My little robots can detect diseases at the molecular level before symptoms even appear. They can monitor drug interactions in real time, prevent adverse reactions, and deliver targeted treatments." Mom's hand froze over the papers. "What are you talking about? The patents you're so eager to acquire?" I pulled up the approval notification on my phone, displaying it on the dining room's smart screens. "They were just approved. And they're worth significantly more than your distribution division's quarterly earnings." The color drained from Dad's face as he read the numbers. Caroline's phone slipped from her fingers, clattering against her Bernard plate. That's impossible," she whispered. "Is it?" I touched my watch again, bringing up holographic displays of my technology in action. Microscopic machines danced through blood vessels, identifying cancer cells, detecting pathogens, and delivering precision treatments. While you were all planning my corporate makeover, I was changing the future of medicine. Mom's hands trembled as she reached for the transfer papers. "Darling, surely we can discuss this as a family." We are discussing it, I said softly. Just not quite the way you planned. I checked my watch one last time. Now about those documents. The sound of shattering crystal cut through the room. Dad's Scotch glass had slipped from his fingers, spreading 30 years of single malt across the Persian carpet. But for once Mom didn't even notice the stain. She was too busy watching her carefully laid plans evaporate like morning dew under the harsh light of my success. The silence in the dining room was broken only by the gentle hum of my holographic displays, showing nanobots effortlessly navigating through human cells. The images cast an ethereal blue glow across the shocked faces of my family members, their carefully maintained composure cracking like thin ice. 6.2 billion? Dad finally managed, his voice barely a whisper. He reached for his Scotch glass, remembered it was in pieces on the floor, and instead gripped the edge of the table. That's more than Henderson Pharmaceuticals' entire market cap. Current market cap, I corrected, checking my watch. It's actually dropping as we speak. Word of my patents is already hitting the markets. Caroline scrambled to pull up her stock trading app, her perfectly manicured nails clicking frantically against the screen. Oh my God, she breathed. Our shares are down 12% in the last hour. The board is blowing up my phone. Mom's hand shook as she tried to discreetly slide the transfer papers back toward herself. I caught them with one finger, letting a small smile play across my lips. Looking for these? Don't worry, I've had my legal team prepare some alternative documents. I pulled out my own folder, the thick paper bearing my company's watermark. Quantum Diagnostics Incorporated, though they're quite different from what you had in mind. Alternative documents? Mom's voice had lost its usual commanding tone. Yes. You see, while Henderson Pharmaceuticals' distribution network is adequate for traditional medications, it's completely unsuited for my technology. I began laying out papers one by one. However, I'm willing to offer you a limited partnership agreement. Under my terms. The doorbell rang, its chime echoing through the tension-filled room. Right on schedule. That would be my team, I said, standing smoothly. I hope you don't mind, but I took the liberty of inviting them to Dad's birthday celebration. They're rather essential to this discussion. Before anyone could object, our butler Thompson appeared, leading a group of distinguished-looking individuals into the dining room. My lead counsel, Sarah Chin, nodded professionally. Behind her, Dr. James Wright, former head of the FDA's Advanced Medical Division, adjusted his bow tie. And bringing up the rear was Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the WHO's chief of innovation. What is this? Dad demanded, some of his old authority creeping back into his voice. This, I gestured to my guests, is what actual pharmaceutical innovation looks like. I touched my watch, expanding the holographic display to show global medical data. My nanotech platform isn't just another drug delivery system. It's a complete paradigm shift in medical diagnosis and treatment. Dr. Wright stepped forward, his bow tie slightly askew as always. Ms. Henderson's technology represents the most significant breakthrough in medical diagnostics since the invention of the MRI. The FDA has fast-tracked approval across all major categories. Caroline's face had gone pale, her iPhone forgotten in her hand. But our distribution networks are obsolete for this technology, Dr. Rodriguez cut in. Quantum diagnostics nanobots require specialized handling and programming. The WHO has already certified their proprietary delivery system as the new global standard. Mom's social training finally kicked in. Perhaps we could discuss this over coffee in the living room? Thompson can serve. No need, I interrupted, laying out the final document. Everything's prepared right here. This agreement offers Henderson Pharmaceuticals a 5% stake in Quantum Diagnostics distribution subsidiary. It's more than generous, considering your company's current trajectory. As if on cue, Caroline's phone buzzed again. Stock's down 18%, she whispered. The board is calling an emergency meeting. They might want to wait on that, Sarah Chin suggested, her legal pad ready. This offer expires in. She checked her Patek Philippe. Exactly 20 minutes. Dad reached for the documents with trembling hands. All this time in that warehouse lab. I wasn't playing with toys, I finished for him. I was building something that will save millions of lives. I pulled up another holographic display, this one showing real-time disease detection in a patient. My nanobots can identify cancer cells months before traditional screening, track viral mutations during epidemics, and deliver targeted treatments with zero side effects. The implications for global health are staggering, Dr. Rodriguez added. Major health organizations worldwide are already implementing Ms. Henderson's protocols. Mom's society smile had completely crumbled. But surely as family, I cut in, you were ready to seize my patents for a fraction of their worth. You dismissed my work as a hobby. You tried to bribe me with an executive title I neither wanted nor needed. I checked my watch again. 15 minutes left on the offer. Caroline finally found her voice. The board will never approve. The board doesn't have a choice, Sarachin interjected smoothly. Based on current market reactions, Henderson Pharmaceuticals stock will likely drop 40% by morning. This partnership offer is the only thing that might stabilize it. Dad's hands shook as he reached for his reading glasses. 5%. But the technology, we should have full access. You should be grateful for any access, Dr. Wright said firmly. Every major pharmaceutical company in the world is bidding for collaboration rights. I've never seen anything like it. My phone buzzed one final time. Current valuation, $7.1 billion. Major tech companies entering bidding. 10 minutes, I announced, placing a pen on top of the documents. Oh, and Dad. I smiled softly. Happy birthday. Consider this 5% stake my gift. It's worth more than Henderson Pharmaceuticals will be by tomorrow morning. The only sound in the room was the scratching of Dad's pen as he signed, his carefully built pharmaceutical empire crumbling in the face of my silly medical devices. Mom never did get around to serving that coffee. 1 week later, I stood in my little lab, watching the sunrise through the floor-to-ceiling windows I'd installed when I first bought the warehouse. The space looked different now, less like the hobby workshop my family had dismissed and more like the command center of a medical revolution. Holographic displays filled the air with cascading data, tracking my nanobots as they performed diagnostics in hospitals across the globe. The morning light caught the edge of my watch as I reviewed the latest numbers. 30,000 lives saved, 47 types of cancer detected in early stages, and a stock valuation that had soared to $9.3 billion. Ms. Henderson, my assistant David appeared silently at my side. Your family is here. I checked the time, 7 a.m. sharp. All of them. Yes. Your father appears to have aged considerably since last week. Your sister hasn't quite managed her usual polish. And your mother, he paused diplomatically, brought a rather large Hermes bag filled with what appears to be promotional materials for Henderson Pharmaceuticals. Still trying to salvage something, I murmured. Show them in, please. Full display protocol. The lab transformed as they entered. Hidden screens emerged from sleek walls, holographic projections intensified, and the floor became transparent, revealing the massive production facility below where my nanobots were being manufactured in sterile conditions. Good God, Dad breathed, his usually immaculate appearance showing signs of strain. His tie was slightly askew and his silver hair hadn't seen its usual styling. This is what you built. This, I gestured to the surrounding technology, is what happens when you invest in innovation instead of sales conferences in the Bahamas. Caroline stumbled slightly in her Louboutins, catching herself on a nearby console. The past week had clearly taken its toll. Her designer outfit couldn't quite hide the dark circles under her eyes. The board meeting yesterday. It was a massacre. Our stock dropped another 15%. I completed her sentence, pulling up real-time market data. Meanwhile, Quantum Diagnostics just secured contracts with the top 10 hospital systems in Asia. I paused, allowing that to sink in. How's the distribution division performing? Mom stepped forward, her Hermes bag clutched like a shield. Darling, we've prepared some proposals. Henderson Pharmaceuticals has decades of experience. In an industry that's about to be transformed, I cut in, activating a global display showing my technology's implementation. These red dots? Each one represents a hospital using my diagnostic platform. The blue dots are orders waiting to be filled. Notice anything? They stared at the map, which was nearly covered in overlapping dots. Your 5% stake, I continued, is worth more than Henderson Pharmaceuticals' entire market value. And that's just the beginning. Dad's business instincts finally surfaced through his shock. We could merge the companies. With our experience. Your experience? I tapped my watch, showing data. My system is 300% more efficient. My AI logistics beat your methods. My diagnostics? Perfect accuracy. Caroline paled. The Singapore contract. Cancelled? They signed with me, I said. So did all major hospitals in Southeast Asia. A chime echoed. I took the call on speaker. Dr. Henderson, the WHO director, said, "We're ready to launch your pandemic protocol worldwide." Thank you. My team will start at once. I turned to my family. That's real pharmaceutical innovation. Mom's mask cracked. The charity gala. What do I tell the board? Tell them while you plan my makeover, I was reinventing healthcare. While Caroline gave seminars, I built tech that makes old drugs useless. Dad slumped. Why didn't you tell us? Would you have listened? I asked, watching nanobots being built. You called it tinkering. This is my business now. Caroline slid down the wall. The lab. It was never just a lab. No. It's the world's most advanced medical facility. The start of a new era. But the 5% I gave you stays, I added. You'll earn more from that than the company ever made. Dad nodded slowly. Under your leadership. Yes. Under mine. I glanced at my watch. Who is waiting? David will show you out. I paused. And Caroline, I bought your building. It's now a research center. As I left, I saw my reflection. Calm, strong, victorious. Behind me, my family faced their broken empire, their images drowned in endless data streams. Those silly devices, they mocked, were exactly what the world needed. True revolutions start with someone willing to think differently. The chandeliers cast warm light across the mahogany dining table in my parents' penthouse, where crystal glasses sparkled and fine china gleamed. I smoothed my simple black dress, deliberately chosen to be understated, as my mother arranged her Cartier bracelet to catch the light. Emma, darling, Mom started, delicately cutting her Wagyu beef. I ran into Sophia's mother at the club. Her daughter just made junior partner at Goldman Sachs. And here you are, still in that tiny apartment in... She wrinkled her nose. Where was it again? Westbrook Heights, I replied calmly, checking my phone discreetly. Another notification from the merger team. I silenced it without anyone noticing. That's near the industrial district, isn't it? Dad frowned, adjusting his Rolex. Emma, you went to Harvard Business School. You could at least find a proper neighborhood. My sister Victoria smirked, her diamond earrings catching the light. Well, with her consulting work, that's probably all she can afford. Not everyone can live in the Heritage District like me. I took a sip of water, hiding my smile. If they only knew my tiny apartment was actually the penthouse of the building I owned. My work pays the bills. Bills. Mom's voice rose an octave. You should be thinking about legacy, about joining the right circles. Look at your sister. Married to a senior partner, proper house, country club membership. Speaking of circles, Victoria chimed in, the club is having a charity gala next month. Not that you could afford the entry donation, but you should at least try to meet some quality people. Maybe find a husband who can help you fix your life. My phone vibrated again. A message from my chief legal officer about the final contract reviews. I tucked it away, maintaining my composure. I heard about an entry-level position at your father's friend's firm, Mom continued, her voice dripping with false concern. Something in compliance. It's not prestigious, but it's a start. I'm comfortable with my current work situation, I replied, cutting my steak with practiced precision. Dad set down his wine glass harder than necessary. Comfortable? I mean, you're 32. Your sister was making six figures at your age. When are you going to get serious about your future? You can't keep doing this, whatever it is you do, Mom waved her hand dismissively. Consulting for those small tech companies or whatever you call it. It's time to join the real business world. I checked my watch. A subtle Patek Philippe that would have told them everything if they'd bothered to notice. The merger announcement was scheduled for 8 p.m. Just 15 minutes away. The real business world, I repeated softly, thinking about the 150 employees who now reported to me, the offices in 3 countries, the patents pending in my company's name. Yes, exactly. Mom brightened, misinterpreting my tone. I could call Caroline's husband. His investment firm always needs analysts. My phone lit up again. I glanced at it briefly. Final confirmation from the board. Everything was ready. Emma, are you even listening? Dad's voice carried that familiar tone of disappointment. This is exactly your problem. Always distracted, never focused on what matters. What matters? I echoed, watching the time tick closer to 8. And what would that be? Status, connection, proper position. Mom listed off as if reading from her social climbing handbook. Not whatever little consulting projects you're doing. My phone buzzed one final time. A message from my assistant. Ma'am, the $4.2 billion merger is complete. Dad's fork clattered to his plate. Victoria leaned forward, her diamond necklace catching the light. Was that your student loan reminder? I told you Harvard would be too expensive for you to handle. I allowed a small smile as my phone continued to buzz. Multiple messages now, board members, executives, legal team. The merger was proceeding exactly as planned. Actually, Mom brightened, setting down her fork. I've been meaning to discuss something with you. Your father and I have decided to help you fix your situation. My situation? I kept my voice neutral, though I could feel the weight of my company access card in my purse. The one that opened doors to offices in New York, London, and Tokyo. We found you a proper position, Dad declared as if bestowing a great gift. Junior compliance analyst at Madison & Brooks. Starting salary is modest, but it's respectable work. Time to give up this consulting fantasy. The crystal chandelier light caught my watch as I checked the time again. 7:55 p.m. 5 minutes until the announcement. Thomas Madison himself assured me he'd fast-track your application, Mom added, reaching across to pat my hand condescendingly. Though you'll need a new wardrobe. That dress. Well, we can discuss improvements later. My sister snickered. Maybe she can finally move out of that shoebox apartment. Though the junior analyst salary might only get her a slightly bigger shoebox. I took another sip of water, thinking about my penthouse with its view of the city skyline, the private elevator, the secure office where I'd negotiated the merger that was about to shock them all. It's decided then, Dad stated firmly. You'll start Monday. No more excuses, no more playing at business. Time to join the real world. My phone lit up again. A message marked urgent. Final signatures confirmed. Press release going live in 3 minutes. CNBC wants your statement. I stood up slowly, smoothing my cheap dress that had cost more than Victoria's entire outfit. Where are you going? Mom demanded. We haven't finished discussing your future. Actually, I said, picking up my phone as it began to ring, I believe my assistant has something important to tell you about my future. I answered the call on speaker, letting my assistant's crisp voice fill the dining room. Ma'am, the $4.2 billion merger is complete. Your acquisition of Madison & Brooks is now official. Shall I prepare your statement for the press? Dad's fork clattered to his plate. The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. Dad's face had turned an interesting shade of white, and Mom's perfectly manicured hand clutched her pearl necklace. I'm sorry, I spoke into the phone, maintaining eye contact with my father. Could you repeat that for everyone here? Of course, Miss Sullivan. The $4.2 billion acquisition of Madison & Brooks by Sullivan Technologies is complete. The board has unanimously approved the merger. You are now the majority owner and CEO of both companies combined. CNBC, Bloomberg, and Wall Street Journal are requesting immediate comments. Dad's hand trembled as he reached for his phone, probably to verify what he'd just heard. Mom's lips moved wordlessly as she struggled to process the information. That's impossible, Victoria stuttered, her designer bracelet jangling as she gripped the table. You're just a consultant. I pulled out my company ID card and placed it on the table. CEO and founder, Sullivan Technologies. Specializing in AI-driven financial software and cybersecurity solutions. Current market valuation, $8.7 billion. I paused, letting that sink in. And yes, we just acquired Madison & Brooks. But, Thomas Madison. Dad's voice cracked. He never mentioned. Because he didn't know, I replied calmly, checking another message on my phone. The acquisition was conducted through a series of shell companies. Standard practice in hostile takeovers. Mom's face flickered between shock and calculation. Darling, why didn't you tell us? All this time. All this time, I interrupted. You were too busy planning my real career to notice what I'd built. Too focused on your country club memberships to see that my tiny apartment is actually the penthouse of a building I own. Victoria's face had turned ashen. But you drive a Honda. Tesla actually. Custom built. I just prefer to keep a low profile. I turned back to my phone. Sarah, please proceed with the press release. And inform Mr. Madison that I'll be in the office first thing Monday morning, not as a junior analyst but as his new boss. The television in the adjacent room suddenly blared to life with breaking news. Dad scrambled for the remote, turning up the volume. Breaking news. In a shocking move, tech giant Sullivan Technologies has acquired traditional banking firm Madison & Brooks in a $4.2 billion deal. The merger brings together 8 years, I said as my family stared at the TV in disbelief. 8 years of building my company while you dismissed my work as playing at business. 8 years of listening to you compare me to Victoria, push me toward dead-end jobs and mock my choices. Mom's wine glass shook as she set it down. Emma, sweetheart, we only wanted what's best for you. No, I corrected her, standing up. You wanted what looked best to your friends at the country club. There's a difference. My phone buzzed again. The car is waiting downstairs, Miss Sullivan. The board is assembled for the emergency meeting. Dad finally found his voice. Why didn't you just tell us? I gathered my purse, checking that my presentation for the board was ready. Would you have believed me? You didn't even believe in me when I graduated top of my class at Harvard. When I landed my first major client. When I secured series of funding. Victoria's mascara was smudged from wiping her eyes. But all those times we invited you to charity galas. I was already there, I smiled slightly. Usually as an anonymous donor. That children's hospital wing you bragged about funding? Check the founding donor plaque again. Sullivan Technologies contributed 80% of the budget. The news continued to scroll breaking updates about the merger. Mom's eyes darted between the TV and me, probably recalculating every interaction we'd had over the past 8 years. Now if you'll excuse me, I said, heading toward the door. I have a board meeting to chair. Oh, and Dad. I turned back. About that junior analyst position. I think I'll pass. The elevator doors opened to the private garage beneath my parents' building, where my driver stood beside a sleek black Tesla. As I approached, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing with notifications. The board members are all present in the virtual meeting room, Ms. Sullivan. My assistant Sarah informed me through the car's Bluetooth system as we pulled away. And the press is having a field day with the announcement. I glanced back at my parents' building, catching a glimpse of their penthouse windows. Any reaction from Thomas Madison? He's colorful, ma'am. His exact words aren't suitable for polite company. I couldn't help but smile. I imagine finding out your company has been acquired by the daughter of your golf buddy isn't sitting well. The car wound through the city streets as I reviewed the merger documents on my tablet. 8 years of careful planning, of living below my means, of letting my family think I was struggling. All to protect the company's strategic advantages. My phone rang. Victoria's face appeared on the screen. Yes. I answered, keeping my voice neutral. How could you? Her voice cracked. All those times I bragged about James's promotion at his firm, mocked your little consulting work. You were worth billions? The company is worth billions, I corrected her. And I learned early on that true power doesn't need to announce itself. But that charity gala last month, the one where I said you couldn't afford the entry donation, you were the anonymous donor who gave $5 million? The children's cancer ward needed funding. I paused as another call came in. I have to go. The board's waiting. Wait. Victoria's voice rose. Mom's crying. Dad's just sitting there staring at the TV. You have to come back and explain. Actually, I don't, I replied firmly. I have a merger to finalize. Besides, isn't this what you all wanted? For me to fix my life and get serious about business. As I ended the call, Sarah's voice came through again. Miss Sullivan, Mr. Madison is demanding an immediate meeting. Schedule it for tomorrow at 9 a.m. In my office. I emphasized the last part. And Sarah? Make sure he goes through standard security protocols. No more special treatment just because he plays golf with my father. The car pulled into the underground parking of my building, a gleaming 50-story structure in the heart of the financial district. As I stepped out, I caught my reflection in the polished marble walls. Simple black dress, subtle jewelry, understated elegance. The antithesis of what my family considered successful. The private elevator opened directly into my penthouse office, where multiple screens displayed news coverage of the merger. Markets were already reacting, analysts were speculating, and social media was buzzing with the story of how a stealth CEO had orchestrated one of the biggest tech banking mergers of the year. "Board members are ready, ma'am," Sarah announced through the intercom. I took my seat at the head of the conference table, facing the wall of screens showing the faces of board members from around the world. In the corner of one screen, I could see CNBC still running the breaking news banner. Sullivan Technologies acquires Madison and Brooks. Tech prodigy Emma Sullivan reveals empire. "Good evening, everyone," I began, my voice steady and confident. "Let's discuss the future of Madison and Brooks under Sullivan Technologies' leadership." As I launched into my presentation, my phone lit up one last time with a message from Mom. "Darling, we need to talk about your father's position on the board." I silenced the phone without reading further. Some things were about to change in the family dynamic, and they weren't going to like all of them. 3 weeks after the merger announcement, I sat in my office reviewing the latest integration reports. The view of the city skyline stretched before me, the morning sun glinting off neighboring skyscrapers. My phone had finally stopped buzzing with constant messages from family members. Sarah's voice came through the intercom. "Your mother is in the lobby again, Miss Sullivan. 3rd time this week." I sighed, setting down the quarterly projections. "Regular security protocols, Sarah. No special access." "Yes, ma'am. Also, the Wall Street Journal interview is in 30 minutes. The past weeks had been a whirlwind of changes. Madison and Brooks's old guard was struggling to adapt to our tech-driven approach. Thomas Madison had resigned rather than report to me. His golf club dignity couldn't handle it. Dad had tried to leverage his friendship with the board members, only to discover they valued their positions more than social connections. My office door opened and Sarah entered with a fresh coffee and the morning's headlines. The business section featured another article about the merger. Sullivan Technologies Revolution: How a Hidden Empire Changed Banking. "Victoria's husband wants a London transfer," Sarah said, placing papers on my desk. "And your father's friends at the club suddenly want to invest." I smiled. "Any news on the Heritage District?" "It's done. Your sister's house now belongs to the company. Not revenge. Just business. Victoria would notice at the next rent adjustment." My phone buzzed. "Mom, the club wants you as charity chair. Call me back." "Mark it red," I told Sarah. "And book Lawrence for one." Intercom: "Miss Sullivan, the Madison and Brooks team is ready." I straightened my suit. "Send them in." Executives entered, nervous. Yesterday I was a tech upstart. Today they're CEO. "Good morning," I said. "Let's discuss banking in a digital age." I remembered the family dinner. Mom's sighs, Dad's lectures, Victoria's smugness. All gone now. Dad's message: "Princess, the club wants to name a wing after you. Mom says you're not returning calls." I turned the phone down. This wasn't proving them wrong. It was proving me right. "AI timeline?" an executive asked. "Stick to the plan," I said firmly. Sarah signaled it was time for the Wall Street Journal interview. "One last thing," I said. "Madison and Brooks sign comes down. From today it's Sullivan Technologies." Executives left. I caught my reflection. No longer the daughter who needed fixing. Now the CEO who changed an industry. Victoria, just another tenant. Mom's social games? Small. Dad's contacts? Now mine. "Sarah," I said, gathering notes, "send the family a message. Shareholders meeting next month. They're welcome," I smiled. As minority shareholders. I hadn't just fixed my life. I'd redefined it. And this was just the start. The Sterling family reunion buzzed with the usual mix of bragging and passive-aggressive comments. I adjusted my off-the-rack suit, watching my cousins compare designer labels and stock portfolios. "Morgan's still at Richardson Financial?" Uncle James called out, swirling his expensive scotch. Entry-level analyst, right? My sister Sarah smirked. 4 years there and still no promotion. While some of us are making partner at Sterling Industries. I checked my phone, 3:45 p.m. Right on schedule. How much do entry-level analysts make these days? Aunt Patricia asked with fake concern. We never see you at the country club anymore. Dad, CEO of Sterling Industries, laughed from his position at the head of the table. Can't afford the membership dues on that salary. My phone vibrated softly. The message I'd been waiting for. Actually, I said carefully, I've been quite busy with other investments. Playing with your little Robinhood account? Sarah snorted. While we're handling billion-dollar acquisitions at Sterling? Another vibration. The news was about to break. Speaking of acquisitions, I pulled out my tablet. You might want to check your phones. As if on cue, every device in the room started buzzing. The family WhatsApp group exploded with notifications. What the? Uncle James's scotch sloshed as he grabbed his phone. The headline flashed across every screen. Sterling Industries acquired by mysterious O in hostile takeover. Dad's face went white. This is impossible. We own controlling interest. Not anymore, I smiled, pulling up my portfolio app. The ownership structure changed about 30 seconds ago. Sarah's designer purse fell from her lap. What did you do? Remember all those entry-level analyst hours? Turns out they're perfect for spotting weaknesses in corporate defense strategies. I turned my tablet to show them. Like how Sterling Industries had overextended itself on 3 continents. The board would never approve this, Dad stammered. They already did. Unanimously. Amazing what people agree to when they see the real numbers. I checked my watch. The press release should be going out now. More phones buzzed. The family chat exploded again. Sterling stock. Aunt Patricia whispered, staring at her investment app. It's transferring to new ownership, I finished. Don't worry, I paid a fair price. Well above market value, considering the company's actual financial condition. Dad's hands shook. What financial condition? The undisclosed losses in Asia? The failed European expansion? The accounting irregularities that somehow never made it to the SEC filings. I pulled up document after document. Richardson Financial has excellent research resources. Sarah stood abruptly. You can't just take our company. Surely I can. And did. I showed them the ownership papers. Being an entry-level analyst taught me a lot about corporate vulnerabilities. Being ignored by my family gave me time to exploit them. Uncle James drained his scotch. How did you get the capital for this? 4 years of strategic investments, plus some very interested private equity partners who'd noticed the same weaknesses I had. I checked my phone again. The SEC filing is complete. Sterling Industries has a new CEO. Who? Dad's voice cracked. I stood straightening my modest suit. You're looking at her. The expensive crystal glasses rattled as Dad slammed his fist on the table. This is a joke. Some entry-level stunt. Check your executive access, I suggested. Should be denied right about now. Dad fumbled with his phone, face growing redder. My passwords, they're not working. Standard procedure during ownership transitions, I explained. All executive credentials are suspended pending review. Including yours, Sarah. My sister was frantically typing on her phone. My office badge, my email. Deactivated, I confirmed. Along with your corporate credit cards, the company jet has also been grounded. Aunt Patricia clutched her pearl necklace. The family shares are now minority holdings. I pulled up the shareholder breakdown. Less than 2% combined. Though given the irregularities I've uncovered, even those might be optimistic. Uncle James reached for the scotch bottle with shaking hands. Irregularities. Expense accounts used for personal purchases. Corporate assets listed as family property. Tax adjustments that would fascinate the IRS. I scrolled through the documentation. 4 years as an analyst taught me to follow the money. You should have paid more attention to what your entry-level daughter was learning. My phone buzzed with breaking news. Sterling Industries undergoes surprise leadership change. Wall Street shocked by hostile takeover. Youngest female CEO takes control of family empire. Now, I straightened my off-the-rack suit. I believe we should discuss the transition plan. Unless you'd prefer to explain those accounting irregularities to the SEC. The family reunion's celebratory atmosphere had evaporated, replaced by the cold reality of their new position, employees of the daughter they'd mocked for years. The next hour was deliciously chaotic. The family WhatsApp group imploded with accusations and panicked messages. Cousins who'd bragged about their sterling stock options were now frantically calling their brokers. Uncle James had retreated to the library with his scotch, muttering about pension plans. The board meeting is scheduled for tomorrow morning, I announced, checking my tablet. I expect full attendance and complete documentation of all executive decisions from the past 5 years. Tomorrow. Sarah's perfect composure cracked. But I have the spa. Had the spa, I corrected. Your corporate card was just declined. Along with your membership at the country club. Dad's face had aged 10 years in an hour. Morgan, be reasonable. We can negotiate. Like you negotiated my entry-level salary? Or how about Sarah's instant vice presidency? I pulled up more documents. Speaking of which, the nepotism lawsuit from Pastover employees is quite interesting reading. My phone buzzed with another update. Sterling Industries stock halted after ownership change. The stock. Aunt Patricia whispered, staring at her investment app. Will resume trading once the new management team is announced, I confirmed. Though given what the forensic accountants are finding, you might want to adjust your retirement plans. Sarah stood, her designer heels wobbling. I need to call my assistant. Former assistant, I corrected again. Executive staff changes are effective immediately, though you're welcome to apply for a more appropriate position. Apply? She sputtered. I'm a vice president. We're a vice president, I smiled. The position required an MBA, which your University of Phoenix online certificate doesn't quite match. The room went silent. Dad's hands gripped his armrests. You knew about that? I know everything. I displayed more files on my tablet. Every falsified credential, every padded expense report, every business trip to Vegas that somehow included spa treatments and shopping sprees. Uncle James stumbled back in, his scotch glass empty. The pension fund is under review, I nodded. Interesting how family members received triple the standard benefits. The Department of Labor will have questions about that. My phone lit up with breaking news. Sterling Industries executives face scrutiny. New CEO promises corporate cleanup. Family dynasty falls as daughter takes control. Now, I stood, smoothing my modest suit. I have a company to run. Real leadership, not family patronage. The auditors arrive Monday. Monday. Dad's voice cracked. But the quarterly reports are full of creative accounting that would impress fiction writers, I finished. Don't worry, the SEC will help us sort it out. They're very interested in family-run companies these days. Sarah grabbed my arm, her French manicure digging into my sleeve. You can't do this to us. We're family. Family. I raised an eyebrow. Like when you mocked my entry-level job. Or when Dad made me interview 3 times for a position he gave you without a single question. My watch buzzed. Forensic audit team ready to deploy. The next few weeks will be enlightening, I continued. Every account examined, every decision questioned, every family perk evaluated. I suggest updating your resumes. Entry-level positions can be quite competitive. Mom finally found her voice. Morgan, what about the charity gala next week? The Sterling Foundation has been restructured, I cut in. Interesting how our family's charitable donations always seem to fund first-class flights and 5-star hotels. Uncle James swayed slightly. The foundation board has been dissolved. I checked my notifications. The new board, consisting of actual charity professionals, takes over Monday. They're particularly interested in reviewing the past decade of expenditures. Sarah's phone buzzed again. She went pale. Buy corporate apartment. Company property, I confirmed. Along with the car, the vacation homes, and that lovely yacht Dad claimed as a business expense. The moving trucks arrive tomorrow. Tomorrow. Mom clutched her pearls. But where will we live? I smiled. Perhaps you should have thought about that before using corporate funds as your personal piggy bank. Though I hear entry-level salaries can cover modest apartments. My tablet displayed new alerts. Sterling Foundation under investigation. Family perks questioned as new CEO takes control. Corporate assets seized in leadership change. Dad stood shakily. The family trust was funded with misappropriated company money, I finished. Those transfers are being reversed as we speak. Along with certain offshore accounts I'm sure you meant to declare to the IRS. The room fell silent except for the gentle buzz of phones delivering more bad news. The mighty Sterling family was discovering what life looked like without their corporate safety net. Monday morning arrived with a fleet of auditors descending on Sterling Industries headquarters. I watched from my new corner office, Dad's old office, as Sarah cleared out her desk under security supervision. Miss Sterling. My assistant appeared. Your father is here. Again. Send him in. I adjusted my new suit, designer this time. Some changes were worth investing in. Dad looked smaller in off-the-rack clothing, his usual confident stride reduced to an uncertain shuffle. Morgan about the apartment. Was cleared out this morning, I confirmed, checking my tablet. Along with the vacation properties. Amazing how many homes one family needed for business purposes. We had appearances to maintain, he started. And now you have reality to face. I showed him the latest audit findings. Care to explain why the company paid for Mom's plastic surgery under facility maintenance? He slumped in the visitor's chair. The same chair where he'd once told me I needed more seasoning before promotion. The auditors found everything, I finished. Every hidden account. Every fake expense. Every family member on inflated salaries for jobs they never actually did. My phone buzzed with breaking news. Sterling Industries cleanup continues. Former executives face criminal investigation. New CEO exposes decades of family corruption. Criminal investigation? His face went pale. The SEC is particularly interested in those offshore transfers, I noted. Though the IRS has some questions too. Apparently, yacht maintenance isn't a legitimate business expense. Sarah appeared in the doorway, a cardboard box in her arms. My company credit card was rejected at Starbucks. All family cards are cancelled, I confirmed. Though I hear entry-level positions include break room coffee. When you find one. Entry-level. She nearly dropped her box. But my experience. As what? I pulled up her personnel file. Vice President of Special Projects? The position that had no actual responsibilities but came with a 7-figure salary. Uncle James stumbled in next, looking hungover. The pension board is reviewing all family distributions, I nodded. Those triple benefit packages violated several federal laws. The Department of Labor sends their regards. My tablet chimed with another update. Former Sterling executives barred from securities industry. You've destroyed us, Sarah whispered. No, I corrected. I exposed you. The family destroyed itself with years of fraud, nepotism, and corruption. I just turned on the lights. Dad found his voice. What do you want? What I've already taken, I smiled. Control. Respect. And the chance to run Sterling Industries the way it should have been run. As a business, not a family slush fund. My phone buzzed. Quarterly projections show 40% growth under new management. Now, I stood straightening my designer suit. I have a company to run. Real business, not family business. Security will escort you out. Morgan, Mom appeared, tears smudging her expensive makeup. Where are we supposed to go? I hear Richardson Financial is hiring entry-level analysts, I replied. The pay isn't much, but it's honest work. Something this family should try for a change. As security led them out, I watched from my corner office window. The mighty Sterling family, reduced to carrying boxes to their suddenly modest cars. My assistant appeared again. The SEC investigators are ready for your statement. Tell them everything, I instructed. Every document, every transaction, every family scheme. It's time for Sterling Industries to be known for something other than nepotism. Sarah's voice carried from the lobby. My keycard doesn't work for the executive elevator. Welcome to life at ground level. I murmured, turning back to my empire. Sometimes the best lessons start at the bottom. By Wednesday, the full scope of the family's financial deception made national headlines. Wall Street analysts were calling it the Sterling scandal. The SEC had opened a formal investigation, and 3 major banks had frozen the family's personal accounts. My phone rang. It was Uncle James. The country club canceled my membership. His voice slurred despite the early hour. Said something about pending criminal investigations. Standard policy, I replied, reviewing more audit findings. They're particularly concerned about those charity tournament funds that somehow ended up in your Cayman account. Mom texted next. The housekeeper quit. Says her checks bounced. Because you were paying her from corporate accounts, I typed back. Which reminds me, the IRS would like to discuss those unreported household staff wages. Sarah showed up at reception again, this time without her designer handbag. I can't access my trust fund. There is no trust fund anymore, I explained, not looking up from my work. Just a complex web of misappropriated corporate money. The forensic accountants are quite impressed with the creativity, though the prosecutors less so. My tablet displayed more headlines. Sterling family faces multiple investigations. Former executives could face criminal charges. New CEO cooperating with federal probe. Dad made one final attempt, sending a formal letter through his newly hired attorney. The response was simple. A complete documentation of his personal use of corporate resources, ready for SEC review. Miss Sterling. My assistant appeared. The Wall Street Journal is ready for your interview. I smiled, thinking of my family's rapid fall from grace. Tell them I'll discuss our new corporate governance standards. And our entry-level recruitment program.